And it is recording. Excellent. All right. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to bring my, excuse me, I'm going to bring my Android Studio up to date first because I know it has been updated over the weekend, and I think this is a pretty big update as well. So it's not really just updating a few libraries and stuff like that. I think Android Studio itself is going to be updated. So I'm going to show you guys what it looks like when a major update is needs to happen, because Android studio.sh, the script file itself actually needed to be updated. I did this in the office, and that's what happened. I think I did it at home. Well, I didn't try it at home over the weekend. Okay, so there you go. We go to configure, and then we check for update. So right here it says there's an update. There are actually some major components to be updated in this case. So we'll go ahead and select update now to let it update itself. And while it is doing this, we can go to the website, go to Moodle, and we can then take a look at the new notes that I have prepared. For those of you who were in cisp363, woohoo! Now we can do menus, finally. That's one of the things that we couldn't do in 362. There's no provision to do menus. So we're gonna do it today. So what I've been doing is I'm slowly introducing all the major pieces for you guys to write your own app. And I think menus is going to be a big piece. Without menus, you can still make an app go, but it's not going to be conventional anymore, because people do expect menus when they work with their apps. Okay, so this is really exciting because for the first time we can now work with menus. Alright, so the menus is down at the action bar and menu here. There's no specific text for it, but it is actually one of the more interesting topics. I also found that Google's documentation is also kind of a little bit spotty when it comes to making your own action bar. So I follow that, I follow the instruction, and there were holes. Okay, so I was going through the lessons here one by one and go like, no, this doesn't work. It is not connecting. So I did figure out what to do to make it work, and let me just double check on the other one. Okay, it says it's finished, and let me see if I still have any. Maybe I'll restart it just to be sure. Okay. Because the installation in my office needed to be updated big time, including the script itself. Just making sure that, okay, this one has got the latest one. So maybe I use this a little more often than the one in my office. All right, cool. So Android Studio is all updated. And what we'll do today is we can go through the notes, which is going to be really boring. This is Android's own link to using the action bar. It is not. I mean, you can read it. I mean, obviously, you can just read it and follow through, their recommendations and lessons. But I found that they had missing links between the first 3 links. So between setting up the app bar and adding and handling actions, there's something missing in it. Okay, there's a missing link to connect a menu that you have designed to the action bar. You can make the action bar, okay, from the first slide, you can make the action bar, except it doesn't do anything. You can design your own menu as well, except there's no way to link it to the action bar.
I've noticed that with their documentation it's somewhat spotty.
Yeah, I think that has to do with Android itself is moving so quickly. They could not put enough resources behind documentation. And I think it's also because they make that assumption of, oh, our user or our developer community can figure this out. But after all, there is, Stack Overflow, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, if you want to read this, it's cool. I mean, it's just additional information. But I did put everything together. So this is my own note to kind of link everything that you need to know to get a basic action bar to work. Okay, there's a gazillion options of stuff that you can do. but we just want to get the basic stuff to work today. Okay, so so here is the link. I'm gonna open it up, and as usual, my stuff is usually not very exciting, not a whole lot of pictures, but it should give you enough information to add action bars to your app. Okay, so this is all the stuff here. I'm gonna open it and let it stay here. And I'm gonna go back here and go to one of my existing projects and use it as an example to show you guys, how to add something, add an action bar to your app. So I'm gonna pick a non-MVA counter. Okay, it doesn't really matter which one I pick, they're all about the same. Okay. It is possible it's just me, okay? However, I have found that the support of ActionBar is kind of missing when it comes to Android Studio. It doesn't make it very easy to make your own ActionBar and make your own menu items, to get it to work. I don't know exactly why, but that's just my understanding. All right, so let me just gonna close all the window first, so I can start from scratch, of how to do this. Switching back to my notes. Okay, the first thing we do is actually counterintuitive. But first, before we even do that, let's talk about the action bar or the menus of a mobile app. Now, the menu is nothing new to us, especially if you have used desktop computers for a long time, because even our Android Studio, okay, has a big menu bar here. Your app cannot assume that much area for the action bar, okay, because your app is on a small device, a mobile device, which typically only has 5 to 5.5 inches diagonal screen. That's not a whole lot of screen space. You cannot have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. There are about 12 to 13 items on the menu bar. Forget it. It's not going to work on your mobile device. Your mobile device may have a 1080p resolution, but your eyes are not good enough to actually make use of that 1080p resolution. So what are we going to do? What does the menu bar or action bar look like on any type of mobile device, especially a kind of standard 5-inch kind of device?
3 lines. It's limited.
It's very limited, very good. Okay.
It's just there's other options. They're just not always visible.
Right. So they usually display the name of the app, on one side. There's usually a magnifying glass depending on the app. Okay. There's a magnifying glass on one end, and possibly a share, kind of like this kind of symbol on the other side. This is the share icon, and then they have a magnifying glass for the search icon. And typically, depending on the app, this is all you get on the action bar. And then on top of this, it has 3 dots, which is called the overflow area. So the less commonly used actions are typically hidden in the 3 dots. Okay, so they're not displayed on the bar itself. So on the bar itself, you only see the magnifying glass, which has a very small area here for you to type in what you're searching for. The share, thing, because I think these days most people like to share whatever they find on the website or Pinterest or whatnot. And then on this side, typically you have the name of the app itself. Okay, and that's it. You don't get 14 items on the menu bar. But it is still a useful concept, because what the menu bar is doing is giving you the option or giving you the ability to trigger options or actions that are not directly related to the screen itself. Okay, so we're gonna read this part a little bit here. So a menu item is an action that the end user can perform. Okay, in many ways, if you do not have a menu, you can always do it by some kind of button on the screen itself. Okay, because it's just a way to trigger an action. But typically, you don't want to do it with buttons on the screen itself, because it can be very distracting. Because button on the screen is going to take up space all the time. And you cannot use a spinner to replace a menu either, because a spinner is not hierarchical. You cannot go to one action and then it pops up other sub actions and so on, but a menu bar can. Okay. One thing about the menu bar or the action bar is it stays on top of the activity at exactly the same place when the rest of the activity or the rest of the screen is scrolling, which is a big plus because that means you can scroll on the screen and then still be able to access the more commonly used items on the menu bar. Because the action bar does take up some screen space, it is not always a good idea to make it visible all the time. Some apps that need more screen space would hide the action bar by default and only show the action bar when a certain screen action is used to trigger it. If you use a browser on your mobile device, that's one of the examples, okay? Because typically your browser, whether it's Firefox or the default browser, would not show the action bar. It's only when you scroll to the top, then the action bar would pop up. Then you have a chance to switch to another tab, search on that page, or do all the configuration work. Another example is Kindle. Any type of ebook reader would also have the action bar mostly hidden until you press the middle part or the center part of the screen. Kindle works that way. When you click on the middle part of the screen, then the action bar would pop up. Because by default, it thinks that most people would want to use the entire screen for reading books instead of having a good chunk of your screen just displaying the action bar and it's not being useful for the most part. So it all depends on the app. If you have an app that by itself does not need a lot of screen space, sure, by all means, you pop up the action bar all the time. But on the other hand, if your app does need to take up the entire screen most of the time, then you want to hide the action bar and use some kind of screen action or screen interaction to trigger the display of the action bar. And then give it a timeout too. Now, we haven't really talked about any type of timeout mechanism in this class yet, but that's a good way to do it too, is once it pops up, give it a timeout. If nothing happens in 3 or 5 seconds, have it automatically disappear, so then you can have the rest of the screen as well for whatever you're doing. So the first thing we do when we add an action bar to a backward compatible app, now this is recommended by Android because it is because the concept of the action bar does not exist in earlier versions of Android. But because we have the backward compatibility option when we make new projects, so most of my projects, if not all of them, have the backward compatibility flag turned on. So this way, my app can actually be installed on much older Android devices. But if you want your app to act exactly the same way and not look really ancient when it is using the backward compatibility mode, then you want to be able to create the illusion of an action bar, even though it's running on older devices that do not actually have the concept of an action bar. So to do that, the first step is really counterintuitive. So what we need to do is to go to this particular file in your project, your hierarchy, and then you want to find the definition of app theme and look it up so that you would choose the no action bar version of that theme. So I'm going to do it right here so you can see what I mean by that. So you would go to apps, go to app, go to resource, and then you go to, values, and then go to styles. And when you go to styles, this is what would show up. Let me see, can I zoom in a little bit in text? Nope, not from here.
I think you can just hit Control plus and it'll zoom in.
Yeah, I just typed Control plus. It doesn't seem to do anything. All right. Okay. Can you guys read it? Okay. So the most important part is this guy here. Okay. So we are talking about app theme, and the themes in Android is just like your classes. They can inherit. So in this case, this particular app theme for this app is inherited from theme.app.compat.like.dark action bar. Okay. Which basically means the theme itself is including the description of an action bar, where it's supposed to go, and so on and so forth. The first thing we want to do is to get rid of it. Okay? So instead of using dark action bar, we're going to change it to no action bar. Like that. Oops. Shouldn't have to click it because I got it right the first time. There we go. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is to click change it to no action bar. And then you probably want to rebuild your project because the action bar itself should go away. And this is done because we want our app to be backward compatible so that it can be installed on versions of Android that does not support action bars by themselves. All right, so let's go ahead and just build a project. Okay, so make project, make sure that everything is still okay. There we go. All right, so everything is still okay, which is good, which is great. So are there any questions about this particular part? Yes?
So do you already have an action bar added, or is that always in there?
As far as I know, it's always specifying dark action bar or something like that. And I have no idea why Android Studio will automatically pick that particular theme. But it is not compatible. If you do it this way, then the action bar won't work in older devices. So it's conflicting with that particular option when I created the project in the first place.
Okay.
So it could be just a oversight from the perspective of Android Studio. It's possible that it cranks out this code, but not considering, oh, this needs to be backward compatible. But it is necessary to change this first, because otherwise the project won't build. Okay, so switching to the notes on the other tab right there. Okay, so then we have a few things that we need to do. Then we need to go to the activity layout editor, and then what we'll do is we're going to include a toolbar, not an action bar, into the layout, and then we have to do some editing like what is described here. So let me switch back to here, and we'll go to the layout. So in this case, we only got one activity, so this is our only layout for an activity. And then we'll go to the design view, and you can see that in the design view, it used to have an quote-unquote action bar. It is not there anymore. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll leave some room here, move things around a little bit, so that we have some space for the toolbar. And then the next thing we do is we scroll down to toolbar right here, and then we drag and drop a toolbar right at the top of the app here. And you can see that there's there's a gap between the top and the side compared to the app itself. That has to do with the screen or the activity itself has some padding, so we can change that so it looks better. Okay, so I'm just going to show you, what I mean by the gap here. See this gap here? That has to do with the layout of the screen itself. So when we switch from the design view back to the text view, so we're looking at the XML document, then we can do some editing here. So the first thing we do is we can change the padding. We can remove all the padding, or at least just the top and the left, but I'm going to remove all of these paddings here. So I'm just removing in text, just get rid of all of these. And then what we also need to do is to go to the toolbar and start to make some changes to it. Okay, so we make some changes to this. One thing we need to do is to change the height. So according to the documentation here, we have to change the height so that it is, we have to change the theme to action bar. So this is the entire thing. I'm just going to copy and paste it here. So copy, and then we look up the theme, which is this one here, and we paste this one over here. So the theme of the toolbar is now the theme of the action bar, which has all the predefined colors and sizes and whatnot. And I believe the height has to be changed as well. So layout height has to be changed to the action bar size, which is a particular attribute of the theme. So we go here, we go to the height, which used to be wrap content, and then we change that to action bar size attribute. A few items can be deleted. I believe the align parents can be deleted at this point. Yep, align parent, align center, horizontal, those can be removed, and the minimum height can also be removed. So we are doing some doctoring here. As I'm talking, I'm actually something is going through my mind, and I'm thinking, maybe it is possible to do this without doing all this exercise, but I know this for sure, works. So I'm gonna just, do that part here. All right, and I think we need to add two things. One is app.popup theme. The other one is elevation. So we'll go ahead and add these two. Okay, so this is copy and paste. And it gives me a little red squiggly. Namespace app is not bound. And the way to fix that is to, there's a way to fix it. Let me see if we can find out. Let me add the other one first. All right, so it says right here, it actually just figure out how to do it. Okay, Alt Enter. No. It popped up, but I can't hold on to it. And this has to do with attribute elevation is only used in API level 21 and higher. Okay, I'm going to comment out these two lines and see if it will still work. There we go. Because these two I know for sure are recommended, but they are not needed.
Oh, I think maybe your quotes. Looks like your quotes.
Yeah, my quotes are. Yep, I can see that.
And why did it comment out that bottom line when you did the second one?
Yep.
It interrupts. Needs to pull the last line up above the part that's commented out.
I don't know about that. Or maybe it doesn't. I know it takes this kind of commenting. Okay, let me just get rid of it. Now it's good again. But the quotes are definitely they look different. Because I think the HTML encoding is different, so it's not actually using a double quote in that case. But I'll just keep it like this, and we'll go back to design view, and you can see how now it looks about right. Okay, so we'll move all of the other stuff back to where they used to be, like so. So the first thing we do is we'll just go ahead and build a project and see if it still works, because if everything goes well, this should still be working. Okay, go. Now to really test this, I have to make a virtual machine that has a much older version of Android installed, so that we can test whether it is truly backward compatible on older devices. But before we do that, we'll just make sure that it does work with the later version first.
While the emulator starting, could you go back to the text view just real quick? So I can double check, make sure my performance serves.
Okay, so we'll go to the styles, or go
Activity main.
this one,
Yeah.
and you want to go to the text view.
Yes.
There we go. Oh, those are the buttons. Text view. There we go. Toolbar. Okay, so the app just started in the background, and we'll go check out the app here.
I'm good.
Okay, cool. And the app itself doesn't seem to be working, or am I stuck in a breakpoint? Nope, this doesn't seem to be working. All right, so give it one more try. Stop. Starting again. Okay. It's definitely not working. But it's not complaining anything here, which is okay. Now it starts to have some complaint. And I think at home I got about the same kind of issue. It had to do with the hardware acceleration. So let me turn off this particular
It
thing.
looked like it just loaded. Looked like it just loaded when you.
Oh, you mean the whole screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when I was home, it had to do with the software emulation versus hardware emulation. Okay, we'll give it one more time here. Oh, okay. It is using the software renderer, so maybe that's partially why it's a little bit slow. Okay, so even though we have quote-unquote an action bar done, it is not going to do a single thing because it's not linked to a menu. We haven't really specified a menu yet. Okay, there we go. So this is our action bar. Obviously, it's not doing anything. And at this point, it is really just a blank toolbar that takes on the style of an action bar. So it really is not functioning as an action bar, which also means that if I have enough stuff on the screen, it will scroll along with the rest of the screen, where the action bar is not supposed to scroll along with the rest of the screen. So it looks like one, but it really is not one. So the next step is to make it, an action bar, and that has to do with your actual code in the activity itself. So what we need to do next is to basically go to our activity on create method, and then what we do is we retrieve the toolbar, which has an ID, has a resource ID, and then once we retrieve the toolbar, then we'll say, okay, make this the actual support action bar. The word support here is basically for backward compatibility support, so that makes the difference, because there is another method called set action bar, but this is a set support action bar because we want it to be backward compatible. So let's switch back here, and this time we go to the source code. So we go to Java, go to the main. Okay, is that the main? Yep, main activity. And then what we do is we add one more thing into this part here. The first thing I'm going to do, we can actually do it in one single call, but separate it into multiple calls is a little bit easier to see. So we have toolbar, and we'll use Alt-Enter, and you can see that there are two toolbars. We need the first one, which is the support.v7.widget and not android.widget, because we are now trying to use the backward compatibility mode in order to make sure that this app does work in older versions of Android. So the first one is what we need, and then we say tb, which is toolbar, is toolbar, and then we're casting the reference, and we can use find view by ID, just like find view by ID apply to buttons and text boxes, because a toolbar is a widget, and it is basically quote unquote a view that you can find using find view by ID. And the default name is really just toolbar, so that's how we can retrieve the toolbar itself. And then the next thing we do is we're going to set this as our support toolbar, so we can type set support action bar, and then use TB, which is a reference to the toolbar that we retrieved earlier, and this will set the toolbar as the action bar functionally. Yep, go ahead.
So
So when you first type toolbar and it gives you the option of the backwards compatibility or the non-backwards compatibility,
Right.
where is that selecting that? And can you go back and change that later?
If you want to change that later, I think the best way to do it is to delete it first. So you want to go here and just get rid of this one. And then when you scroll back to the original line, then it will give you the squiggly again, and it will give you a recommendation of what to do about it. So I think I haven't quite figured out how to pop that suggestion box.
Maybe just cut, copy the rest of the line and then save it for later. And paste it back in.
Find view by ID. Okay, so I misspelled this one. That one is easy. But I know that it doesn't. It doesn't give me that the Alt Enter.
It's like only when you're typing it for the first time.
It looks that way, which is kind of. Okay, now it gives me the option. So if I'm overwriting it and typing, then it gives me the option. So there we go. Alrighty. Okay. So once again, we're going to test the program, to see how it is going to be different now that it is quote unquote an action bar, right? So we'll go ahead and stop the current app and restart it after we recompile the program. All right. Cool. Now it's an action bar because it is different. Now it has got the name of the app on it. It says right here, it's non-MAV counter, which is the name of the app. Now, by the way, this is the title of the action bar. You can change it. That's a pretty easy thing to change.
How?
Okay. How? Well, this is how we're going to do it. So you can go to get support action bar, which will give you an action bar, and then you say set title to counter. Okay, because that's what the counter, this is a counter app, right? Okay, so we'll go ahead and give it a try. Spin, give it a spin again. And we have our app up. And there we go. It changed the title to counter. So pretty easy to do. All right. Now, what do we do about an action bar? This action bar is totally useless. Okay, its only purpose in life is to take up screen space. Because you can click it all day long, it just doesn't do a single thing. Okay, so I can click it. Okay, I can click the name itself. I can click somewhere else on the action bar. It doesn't do a single thing. It doesn't interfere with the rest of the program. I mean, the rest of the program is still working fine. It just doesn't do anything. Okay, so as far as this app is concerned, the equal to 0, the way that I'm resetting it, really doesn't belong to a button on the same screen, because there's always a chance that I might hit that button accidentally. Okay, so it would be kind of a good idea to put that into a menu item. So this way, I have to trigger the menu first, and then from the menu, I can trigger the action to 0, the counter at that point. Okay, so this is what we need to do, is to design a menu to do just that. Okay, a very, very simple menu. But to do it is not very, very simple. This is one of those things, where I don't understand why Android Studio does not give you a simple way to do it, because it's a multi-step process. Let me go back to the notes and explain where we are at this point. So we're done with step 4. Now we have to go to step 5 to actually design a menu. And you cannot do it with a very simple, like one click and say, I want a menu. Okay, it just doesn't work that way. So to get this part done, you have to go to resources. Okay, so go to resources here, right click, and then you say new, and then you say new resource directory, not file. So you have first to create the menu directory itself. And the best way to do it is not to create the folder yourself in the file system, but to use Android Studio to do it. Once you click that, it will ask you, oh, what type of resource are we talking about? Well, I guess it will be a menu resource. These are all of the available resources that you can create. Some of these we are familiar with. like values, layout, those are the things that we have seen already. So we are now starting to get into menus. But this is creating a menu subfolder inside resources. Okay, so we click this, and then we just click OK. And now that we have a menu subfolder, you can click on that one, and then you can right click and say New Menu Resource File. So it's a two-step process to get a blank menu specification done. Now, this particular file name is important because however you call this as the file name, not counting the extension, becomes the identifier for that particular menu. Okay, so it is important. Okay, this file name itself is important. Just like activity_main is important, this one is as well. Okay, so we can, I can just name it as main_menu. You don't have to call it this way, but this is one way. And then you have to specify .xml as an extension. The extension does not become a part of the identifier for this particular menu, but the other part does. And then you don't have to select anything here from the qualifiers. Just specify the name, click OK, and now we have a menu. All right. Are there any questions about this particular step? Or two steps, actually. There are two steps involved to create a blank menu resource in the system. Okay, now that we are in this resource, okay, obviously there are two views as well. You have the text view as well as the design view. The text view looks kind of funky because it is zoomed in or zoomed out all the way, and I have a really small screen to begin with. So that's why things are not going to look exactly how you would see it on your screen. Okay, so I'm zooming it enough so that we can actually see the entire thing. So it's this is a good time to put in a menu item. I'm not going to put in too many of these items, just a single menu item. It's a drag and drop kind of thing, just drag and drop. And now we have a menu item associated with this particular menu. The first thing you want to do is to give it an ID, because if you do not give a menu item an ID, then later on there's no way or no easy way for you to figure out, okay, which menu item did the end user just click on. Okay, so giving it an ID is going to be very helpful. Okay, so we'll just call this one 0 or reset. Okay, reset count. As the ID, and then the title is what is displayed. Okay, so we'll change this to reset, and then the icon is an option thing. If you do have icons that you want to use in place of the text of the menu, you can specify that, which is great because it can save you space. Icons typically are used when you don't want the menu item to be hidden most of the time. Okay, so I'll show you guys what I mean by that. All right, so these guys allow you to change whether the item is visible, whether it's enabled, and whether it's checkable. Because if you're dealing with configuration stuff, sometimes you can toggle it by making a particular menu item checkable. But these are not what we want to do. What we do want to do is to specify one of the things down here, shown as action. Okay, so when you click on shown as action, there are these checkboxes. These checkboxes let you specify, how you want this particular menu item to appear on the action bar. If you click never, okay, it will still be shown, except it does not appear on the bar itself. It is always available, but only after you click the 3 dots as the overflow area. If you click if room, then it will basically see whether there is room on the action bar. If there's room on the action bar because you're using a tablet and you have a lot more area for the action bar, then it will show up by itself. If you don't have room because you're using a smaller device, then it won't show up. It will then be put into the overflow area so that you can only access it by clicking the 3 dots. I'm using never here because I just want to make sure that it is going to require the clicking of the 3 dots, the overflow area. Okay. And if you have an icon, you can click this one so that it will display both the icon and the text next to each other. And if you click always, it means that it is always going to be on the action bar, even if there is not enough space, which is bad because that means it won't be accessible anymore. If you have too many items and you specify too many of those as always, and there's not enough room on the action bar, then you have a problem because they won't go into the overflow area, and then you end up not being able to see all of those items. So in this case, I'm just clicking never here, which means it's always going to be in the overflow area. Yes?
Will it let you pick more than, can you do never and always, or never and if?
It seems to be the case, but some of these are conflicting because
Okay,
never
got
and
it.
always, really cannot be clicked
Okay,
at the
so
same
it's thrown
time.
arrow to do that.
Yeah. So I'm just going to pick never here, okay? And you can also switch to the text view. This is what it looks like in text view. The title is nothing more than just what is displayed as text. ID is how you identify this in program code, and then show as action, it controls where the menu item is going to show. And it says right here, with this particular resource, control F1. Okay, should use app show as action with the app compat library with this. When using the app compat library, menu resources should refer to the show as action in the app namespace, not the Android namespace. Similarly, when not using the app compat library, it should be using the Android show as action attribute. So it wants to change this to app as an action, as a namespace. Add the namespace here. And it doesn't like that either. Oh, that's because, oh, I see why. It's putting this at the wrong place. So this needs to go here, which it already has.
So I think you just need
So
to
we just need to get rid of
pull it.
this and turn it into app. There we go. Doesn't like that, huh? I would just remove that. Okay. There we go.
Exactly what you had.
No, it's good. So it just needs a little bit of moment to convince itself that it's good now. All right, so we got everything specified here, okay? And this is where the Android documentation itself is missing the link, okay? So it would guide you everything all the way up to here, and then it will show you, hey, you got your menu up and running, and now it's time to identify which menu item just got activated, okay? Well, let's check out what's gonna happen to the app at this point. Okay, so I think the app should be running. There we go. No change from before, because there's no linking whatsoever from the action bar to the menu that we just created. Okay, in our code, okay, where we have control over, nowhere did we mention main_menu, which is the identifier of that particular menu that we just created. So this is where the Android documentation has a gaping hole, and never really explained, how do you link a menu that you create to the action bar? Great. Well, I found out how to do it. So, so what you do is you have to override the activity class on create options menu. Okay, so this is what you need to do inside the main activity file in the project. And the function that you're overriding is called on create options menu. which obviously does not mention anything about the action bar itself, because I think the terminology changed a few times in the history of the Android operating system. All right, so we'll say override, and what we are overriding is public boolean on create options menu, and I think let me check the type here. Argument type is menu. Okay, I was right. So the menu type, the type is menu, and Alt Enter to add that portion. Okay. So what we need to do is to make sure that we return the result of the call to the method of the superclass. So we'll basically defer to the superclass to finish up what else needs to be done here. But on top of what the superclass needs to do, we are going to insert something that is specific to this particular app, which is to load the menu itself. And this is a little bit complicated as well, because what you need to do is to get a menu inflator, okay, which is not really a big surprise, because we have seen in the inflating concept from inflating an activity layout. Okay, so the inflator is basically doing the job of taking the XML file and then create the objects in memory that are basically responsible for the dynamic behavior of those particular things while your app is running. So it's taking a static description of, okay, this is the menu or this is the layout, and it's creating the necessary Java objects in order to make it work when you're running the app. But the inflator is a particular engine. You need to tell it to inflate, and when it's inflating, it needs two things. Okay, the first one is a specification of the menu, and then the second thing is the menu object that you want to inflate the specification into. So for the first one is a resource, so it's r.menu .main menu in this case. The name is main menu because that's how we chose the name of the file. Okay, so as I said a little bit earlier, how you name the file that is representing the menu items is important, because this is what you need to use when you are specifying the main menu itself. And then the second item is going to be a reference to the menu object, so that we know where are we inflating the content of this XML file into. Are we doing okay so far with this step? Okay, so this is kind of interesting in some other perspective as well. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, when you say the menu object, where is that?
The menu object is the lowercase menu, which is passed as a parameter from the callback itself. So this menu object that is passed in is also being passed as menu when I'm inflating it. But I'm also using the superclasses method of onCreateOptions to finish up the rest of the operation. So I'm adding this line here to make sure that we know which menu we want to inflate into the action bar. But this is it's really kind of weird that they do not use onCreateActionBar or something like that, because it only specifies options menu, which doesn't tell you anything about action bar at all. So I think this is kind of either an internal issue, or maybe there are other types of options menu that are not action bars, but it's just it just doesn't jive with me when the terminology is not consistent. Okay, so let's check out what this program is going to do at this point. Stop the existing one and then start running it again, and switch to the app, and ta-da! We do see the overflow 3 dots. Click on that, and we see the option that we just specified, which is reset. We click it, and nothing happens. Okay, I can change the count first, and then we click on the reset, because we have not specified what to do when something is clicked. So it doesn't break the application, but at the same time it doesn't do any code, it doesn't do any logic when we click on the item, because we didn't specify anything at all. Is that okay so far? Okay, so we're just kind of going through the step-by-step instructions of adding a functional active action bar to an application that we already have. All right, so if this is all working up to this point, then the next thing we need to do is to specify, okay, what if somebody clicks on one of the items of the menu? So to do that, you have to respond to, oh, this is a typo here. This is on options item selected. Ooh, several typos here. I figured out a way for VI to do spell check, but spell check is not going to work on these names. It's all going to be spelled wrong, right? Okay, let me, I'll go ahead and change it right now, just so that I do it while I still remember. So, this is 0265. Kill the other one first, because I was editing in my office. I don't want it to be conflicting. And you can see how the spell check is working, because ebook down here is actually not in the dictionary, so it thinks it's a typo. Okay, so let me go find that OP. I think uppercase O. There we go. Okay, so it's on options item selected. There we go. Okay. So the spell check is actually working really well, except it doesn't understand that this is a part of a Java program and not in a typical English sentence. So it complains about certain things. It's like, oh, Boolean is at the wrong place. This is a syntax error or grammar problem. Okay, but it does work. This is I found VI to be kind of amazing that they can integrate spell check into the whole thing. There we go. So now when we go back here and we refresh the page, it's all spelled correctly now. Yep. Okay. So let's take a quick look at this particular call. So what it is doing is this function, this callback on options item selected. Once again, it doesn't say anything about action bar. It just says options, right? So when a menu item is clicked on or selected in the action bar, this gets called. Now, there's a default function already with the main activity class, which is inherited from the superclass, but it doesn't do a single thing because it doesn't know anything about the menu bar that we have just created. So what you need to do is to say, okay, let's see if this is something that we can take care of. So the first thing you need to do is to take the item, which is a part of the argument, the only argument, and you say, okay, what is your ID? Because every single item in the menu should have an ID. If you do not give it an ID, there's no way you can check which item you just click on. So you really should associate an ID with every single item in the menu bar. And then we use a switch statement. If you're not a believer of a switch statement, go ahead and use if, else, if, else, if, else, if. Okay, works exactly the same way. But if you like to use a switch statement, this works. It's kind of a little bit more concise, but not by much. And then you use the cases to check whether it is a particular item that you have created in your action bar. In our example today, I only had one, okay, so we'll just have one single item, which is r.id.reset, okay, because that's how reset count is how we call that thing. But we also want to have a default here. The default is basically saying, okay, what if that is not one of the things that I can identify? Well, in that case, you defer back to the superclass and say, hey, superclass, you handle this. I don't know what it is. Okay? So, and then the other part that is kind of important is you have to return true if you have handled it. Because if you return false, then the superclass will basically say, oh, we have a menu item that is not handled. Okay, so if you are handling it, you have to return true. Now, this is one of those places where I look at this code and I frown because there's a return in the middle of a switch statement. Okay, but that's kind of a discussion for another class. Okay, like proper coding style and stuff like that. It will work. It's just kind of bad programming style because you have a return in the middle of a case. Does anyone know in Java, does it do the same thing? If you do not specify any return or break, it will continue execution to the next case in a switch statement, just like C++? No? Nobody knows for sure?
Yeah, I've never tried it.
That part is really broken too. I think that's one of the things about C++ that I do not really like a lot. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to do it right. Okay, I'm not going to use a switch statement. I'm not going to return in the middle of something. Instead, I'll kind of push it all to the end, and then we'll figure out, okay, so how do we know that this is handled? So some of this is just programming style issues. All right, so once again, we have to override again because we have an existing method in the superclass that can do this already, but it's not what we want it to do. So public boolean on options menu selected. I think. Well, okay, let me double check. On options item selected. Okay, item. There we go. And menu item is the argument. Okay, Alt-Enter would automatically include the package. Okay, so now we can specify the code. And I said, I'm not going to try the, kind of ickish way of doing things, which is, having a return statement right in the middle of something. So I'm going to use a Boolean variable to basically remember whether this is handled or not. Okay, so handled equals false to begin with. Okay. So instead of using a switch statement, I'm using an if statement. So the if statement is saying, okay, let's check out the ID of the item, and we'll check and see if, okay, why is it complaining? Compatible type, okay, because I'm not done yet. Okay, so we're going to compare that to r.id.resetCount, which is an integer defined in the embedded class of ID in the class R. And if that is the case, okay, we'll just go ahead and reset the counter. But since this is using the MVA model, I'm not going to just reset the counter because the model is somewhere else. So to reset the counter, I'm going to do the same thing as this one here. Okay, I'm just going to copy and paste this code here, which eventually means I can get rid of the reset button because now we have that functionality inside here. Okay, we have one too many, or two too many curly braces. Okay, so this looks good because I just need to look at all the listeners listening to this particular view and say, hey, all of you who are listening, it is time to reset the counter. So there we go. So we just replicated that code over here. And then we'll say else. Now, because there are no more items that I need to check at this point, so the else is really corresponding to the default case of the switch statement on the other side, which is basically saying, oh, okay, I have one more thing to do here. I have to remember handled is now true because I just handled this particular thing. So in this case, I got nothing to do because I have no idea of how to do it because it's not one of the ID that I can recognize. So the else is not going to do a single thing here. I will leave this blank. I'm not going to do much about the conditional statement just in case I got something else to add here. So I need to return because this is a method that has a return type. So I do have to make sure that I have a return type here. So this is where I really like the ternary operator because then I can say, hey, if it is handled, okay, we'll go ahead and just return the value of handled itself. If not, we're going to return super.on options item selected item. And that's my subroutine. So I do not use any return in the middle of a switch. I do not even have a switch statement. I use a conditional statement or a series of conditional statements to handle the same thing. And on top of that, I'm still using the MVA architecture instead of just sprinkling code to directly deal with counter everywhere. Yep.
Can you quickly explain that operator that you just used?
Oh, the ternary operator? Okay, the ternary operator is common to C, C++, Java, and a whole lot of other languages. So it's called a ternary operator because it has got 3 parts. The 2 operators, or the operator itself, is identified by 2 symbols. One is the question mark, the other one is the colon. This is the condition to check. If the condition is true, this becomes the return value, or it becomes the value of the expression. If the condition is false, then this part becomes the value of the expression. So it's kind of like a if then else, but in the form of an expression. It is very handy because you can put this inside an argument of a subroutine. You can put it into any type of expression. So I personally find that this is really quite useful. Okay, so are there any questions about this code, about on options item selected? No questions? All right, well, if there are no questions, we'll go ahead and try out this code, right? Go ahead and recompile, run it again. Here we go. So when we're here, we'll first go ahead and increment a few times, and then go to the overflow area of the action bar, click it, and select reset. And it did reset the counter, just like before. So this is great because now we have everything basically working. Now this is really basic. I'm not doing anything fancy at all with the action bar, but at least it is functional. Okay. Are there any questions before we do some last minute changes and get rid of the actual button here because that is no longer needed? Yes?
So what are you returning in the second option where it's not handled?
If it is not handled, it's going to return the result of this call, which is basically just saying, okay, superclass, I don't know how to handle this, you go handle it. So whatever that returns is the return value of this call.
So would it be a menu item? A menu item that it didn't know how to handle, the ID of it, or the
Yeah,
item
so
itself,
if I have one menu item where I did not specify the ID and I click it, then it will trigger the execution of this code here. So the superclass will basically quote unquote handle it, which usually ends up with not doing anything. But it still has to handle it, because somebody has to say, okay, how do we handle this? Okay, are there any questions about this code? Okay, so now we know this code is working with a newer version of Android. So let's go ahead and close this emulator. And what we'll do is we'll set up an old version, or one that is running an older version of Android, and we'll see whether this app still works in that case. So we go to AVD Manager, and we'll go ahead and use the slider, but this time we'll go ahead and change its image so it's not using a new version anymore. We want it to kind of throw back to an older version. So we'll take a look and see.
Other images.
Sorry?
Other images.
Other images. And we'll go all the way back to, I think, 3 point something. Yeah, 2.3 is probably the earliest we can go back to. So maybe Gingerbread, version 10. This is deprecated. And these are all ARM-based, which is not... Oh, x86, there we go. Okay, because ARM-based is going to be really slow. So there's something we can use. Lollipop is version 5 already. So this is as far as... Oh, we don't have a download here. So we can only go as far back as KitKat. Okay, let me see if I can refresh. Yep, doesn't let me go all the way back to Gingerbread. But other images, cannot either. Okay, it can only go back to Android 4.4, which is KitKat. So it doesn't really support anything before that.
I wonder if you could get them offline, online.
You can probably get it offline, but the question is how do you integrate it into the folder structure that, Android Studio recognizes. Well, if you have an older device with you today, you can probably use it for, to test this. But it's kind of, I just, don't think it is, it's just not. But it shows these just without a download link. That's the part that they don't get. It's like, why do you show me when there's no download link? Okay. So we can look it up a little bit because this is important to me. I need to make sure that this works in older versions of Android. So let's check it out. Okay, so AVD Manager, download older images. There we go. Okay. System images. We recommend that you create AVD for each API level that your app could potentially support based on user's SDK setting in your manifest. For example, you might want to test all API levels that are equal to and higher than min SDK version setting. Okay, so let's go back to here, go to our manifest setting. Okay, apparently I cannot click on the other one unless this one is done, so I'm gonna have to cancel this one out, get rid of this, go back to the manifest file for this particular app, and I might have specified something that's more recent, and that's why it's blocking me. Okay, so manifests, there we go. All right, so for the application, I didn't. Okay, so did I specify anything here? No, I did not specify any minimum version. Or at least I cannot see that. Okay. Okay, open module setting. Okay, so when I right click, okay, let me show you guys how I got here. You right click on the app itself, you go all the way down to open module settings. And this is how we can get back to the original setting that I chose. Compile SDK version is Marshmallow. Build tool is, okay, so let's see if we can, no, it doesn't give me an option to go anywhere back.
Okay, I think I found an option. You have to check the obsolete checkbox towards the bottom of your SDK manager window, and then you should be able to see.
Okay.
I just can't pull up that option right now.
Okay, so where is that option again?
It's saying in the SDK manager window.
Okay.
There should be a box for obsolete.
Ooh, okay. Well, I can at least check these platforms too. The obsolete button. Let's see.
Or the
Appearance
SDK manager window.
This is the SDK manager window. Okay, let me close this. Go back and open it again. So this is under Tools. Go to Android SDK Manager.
Yeah.
So we are in SDK Manager. The question is, sorry?
On standalone SDK manager.
Oh, okay.
That might be, it might be an option there that's not. Yeah, there you go, obsolete.
Okay, clicks obsolete.
And then refresh it, and it should give you the option to, I think it's packages. Show the refresh button.
Refresh.
Packages, refresh, I believe. Reload, there it is.
Yep. So it has all the build tools. Aha. So we can now go all the way back to 2.3.3 or 3.0. Okay, let's try API 13. Aha, okay. So if I click this,
Oh, I need you to accept more. Go to the Android SDK license, upper left.
there's no accept all.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So with this, the AVD manager probably will allow me to download the images, earlier
it
images.
should now.
You gotta love the speed of this network. 6,000 kilobytes per second.
Have you noticed the Wi-Fi being down today?
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry.
The Wi-Fi's down on my computer too. That's fine.
Oh boy.
Same here. Which really sucks because mine's a Chromebook.
It also sucks because I don't have wired Ethernet drivers. I tried plugging in.
Yes, but at least you can use local stuff. With a Chromebook, you can't.
So, are you running Debian?
On the school computer, I am. I was just trying to get my laptop online, but it's not really critical in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, I get stuck at obtaining IP address.
With wired or Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi.
I tried it on my phone. too, and it's
Interesting.
not
So
working.
that means the Wi-Fi access point is not down, but something is not working.
It's not
Yeah.
getting out.
Because if the access point is down, you won't be able to see LRCCD at all.
Yeah, no, it my phone authenticates it and then it stops at obtaining IP address.
Well, that means I have another call, another email to compose as we are doing this, so that Gerald would know about it. If he doesn't know yet.
Yeah.
I
10,000
suspected.
emails.
Yeah. Here's another one.
Because he's a Windows user, he can't just filter out Wi-Fi problems. All emails concerning Wi-Fi, delete.
Yeah, I'm not on Wi-Fi either, which I normally should be.
Yeah.
So that means
I was all the way over at the other side of the student center. I wasn't even connecting there, so it's the whole
Alrighty.
down. Which is consequently, I don't know. I think whatever issue it is, it's also
Mhm.
affecting the Ethernet because I've been slow as hell on this one. I don't know if anyone else is having a slowdown on the wired connections.
I've done delegate or something.
Screaming fast over here. Wow. Wow. .500 megabits a second. Almost.
Yep. As long as you're not downloading a movie, it's all cool.
That's why you store your movies as distro names, so that way they don't detect it.
Well, if you encrypt it first, then the content itself cannot be identified. But there are no movies worth downloading. I was so hoping that Deadpool would at least get the Valentine's Day special or something. No, guess not this year.
The extended cut Valentine's Day.
Yep. I think last year it was actually nominated as one of the most romantic movies.
Was
It is if you think about it. Imagine for the Valentine's Day edition, they have like they just like edited him like a bunch of like hearts in the background and everything throughout the whole movie.
Yep, yep. And that's him doing this little
Yeah.
gesture, right? Yeah. As a low budget film, it was far more entertaining than the Avengers.
Oh, yeah.
Civil War is so predictable, especially when the two sides clash. It's like playing football. They all line up. You get the quarterback ready to do this, and then you got all the linebackers that are ready to kind of push the other linebacker. Am I watching football? Or am I watching Avengers? I can't really quite tell.
Wasn't Civil War technically a Captain America movie, an Avengers movie?
I don't know. Is it Avenger or is it?
If it's Captain America called in Civil War.
Okay.
It's all Winter Soldier stuff. Or got fucked.
Yep.
It's basically another Avengers movie, but it's technically Captain America.
Yeah, well, he has to duke it out with Iron Man, right? Because Iron Man is representing the other side. Let's play by the book. Yep.
Remember how you were talking about how if didn't put a break or the return statement out, it would just keep flowing through, even in Java.
It would fall through.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the same as C++ then.
Yeah.
I really do not like that part of a switch statement is falling through the cases.
I mean, I looked at some of the code and they were just doing it for simple things, comparing like whether it was the same letter but in different caps.
Mhm.
So that would be a good thing if it would just fall through.
I
to
suppose
compare.
you can handle two cases with
Yeah.
one single branch.
Right,
Correct.
right.
Yeah.
And rich dude still trying to index non-MVA counter. Killed it twice now, restarted it, still just gets stuck there.
Oh. This is also why you need a lot more space for Android Studio, because with all these SDKs installed and all the images, that's just chewing up space on the hard drive.
So did you ever get the hardware acceleration to work? Or you still
I could not get it to work here on this on these computers, but I was able to get it to work on my laptop computer. So it could be a driver issue. This is really good speed. It's about more than 3 times the speed that I get at home.
What kind of graphics cards do you have with them?
They don't have any graphics card. I think these are all coming from the
Oh,
processor. They're on board. So when you look at the CPU that they have, I think they all have like i5 or i7 processors. So these are i5-4590s. They have a built-in quote-unquote graphics card in it. And I think if you look at GLX info, they will tell you the vendor string is SGI. Oh, maybe they do have a graphics card in these things.
SGI.
Yeah.
SGI did anything anymore. That's way.
Yeah, that's
Way
way
obsolete.
in the back. Yep. Interesting. AMD Cedar. And it does have dedicated memory. So this maybe they do have a graphics cards. Let me see how it's hooked up physically.
Yeah, those are if it's
Yeah, there's a
AMD
physical
Cedar.
card. Yep. So these come with a graphics card, and that's why it's not working, because the Intel driver is already installed on the live distribution, but the AMD drivers either are not available or they're not ready to be released yet. So that's why it didn't work. But if you have an Intel processor, on your laptop, if you have an i5, i7, just typical basic setup, it should work. The hardware acceleration should work. All right, let's go back here. Ooh, looks like it's almost done.
It is done.
It is done. Done loading packages.
Yeah, it reloads the packages after it installs.
Okay.
If you look at status, it says installed.
You mean here?
No, next to the packages. If you look,
Oh.
see where it says status, it'll say not installed, and elsewhere installed.
Yep. Cool. Okay, now let's check out the emulator setup.
That should have, allowed it to.
And the slider is an older device, so probably a good idea to change this one. So we go to the images, x86, refresh. Nope.
Try other images.
Yeah, same.
Scroll down all the way
Honeycomb.
Honeycomb.
It allows you to select it, so it already has it now.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it's with this one
The
too.
black one,
Yay.
yeah, there it is.
Cool. Okay,
Select.
excellent.
There you go.
There we go. Finish. You're about to downgrade slider from API 25 all the way to 13.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Size
so,
on this 176 megabytes.
yep. So we'll go ahead and the other one is turned off already, so that's good. So when we run, we can select the slider. How come it's grayed out? Hmm.
minimum SDK.
It's greater than device SDK.
Hmm.
So you did have that in SDK. In
That
your,
would be-
Oh, you
I-
didn't, did you?
Yeah, I did
It's,
because I have to change it. So we can change that now. We can right click on app, go all the way down to open module setting, and now we can downgrade all the way to 13. And then see how it's going to impact our build. So the build tool is still this version. Would that cause any conflicts? I guess Gradle will have a fun time with this. Of course. No resource found that matches the given name. Spinner underlined. Why would that be? And this is in the build thing. So let me see if I can clean the build, clean project, and then build it again. Nope. Looks like it's a portion of this is still fixed to API 21.
Oh, material, yeah, so it's using material design for Android widget. Yeah.
Mhm.
The
Yep.
material name means it's using, yeah. Maybe something in the build script needs to be changed.
I don't know. No, that's not it. Well, maybe not today. Because I think that we might need to do one more thing. You know, when we go to here, I think the build tool version also has to go all the way back to match that.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
the build
you're only
tool.
going to 23, yeah.
Yep.
it doesn't have-
So let's see if that can be specified. Okay, so these are platforms.
SDK tools we need to look at.
Yeah, so here we got platform tools and tools for 25,
That doesn't have for.
but that doesn't give me, okay, let me start the standalone SDK manager and see if that can be. Okay, so it has got all these build tools. The build tools cannot go past 19.1.
Obsolete.
Ah, okay, now we can go back to 17,
Maybe that's not.
but that's not early enough either. So that means if we want to push back, even with all the obsolete, the furthest we can push back is 17 and not quite 13. Okay.
Should Google what to do.
I wonder if they're storing the build tool with. with the 3. Android 3.3 listing?
Well, we can do this. Okay. So we can start a new project and see what is the earliest version they can let us try, right? Okay. All right, so right here we can specify, okay, API 13. Empty activity. And these come with the action bar to a certain extent. Alrighty. Well, I'm gonna spend some lab time doing this. I'm gonna stop the recorder. But what we set out to do today, we got done. Okay, we got the basic functionality of the action bar. So this way, you can start to kind of think about, how to integrate the action bar into your project. Basically, anything that does not belong to the main screen, you'll need to go to the action bar. Right.
Hey, question on the homework.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't remember what it was. Pull it up.
It's okay. It's Monday.
What is you in your code?
It's Monday and the Wi-Fi is down.
So it says, in this assignment, the view should be associated with the fragment itself, but not the activity containing the fragment. I wasn't sure what that meant.
So that means there's a direct connection between the fragment and the model. They're not going through the activity to make that connection. So which
The
basically
activity interfaces with the adapter. And the adapter interfaces with the view. of the model.
in the current version is the activity, but I want it to be shifted to the fragment. So the fragment would now become the view and interact with the adapter fragment. So the activity should stay out of this entire particular. So all the event handlers, they need to be specified in the fragment and not in the activity. So you have to move a whole bunch of code from the activity into the fragment. Let me check. So is that flash drive working? Okay, great. So it works in both. Do you have your persistence drive set up on your laptop? Yeah, when you're using the laptop. Because you need a persistence drive to save Android Studio. I remember we scrubbed your NTFS partition, remember? So I think we got about 100 megabytes, between 100 gigabytes. So that should be enough. Second one? Yes, but I haven't set it up yet. So we can set that up. You don't need to reboot. You can keep your desktop, because I got one more drive here. The other student wasn't here, so I can use this on your laptop. Just for persistence. Oh, you need the battery? Do you have a charger? You just have to disconnect one of them. They don't give us these hardware ports. So we'll just go ahead and disconnect one of the lines. is that answering the question?
I think so. I think it'll make sense once I get in there. I haven't actually gone through and looked at exactly how you have that MVA stuff set up, but
Yeah.
Okay.
I gotta work on the assignment too. The fragment. It's a little weird.
So you can,
yeah. I watched
you
the.
start-
I wasn't here on Wednesday, so I watched
Yeah.
the
Make sure that we-
Yeah, I have
lecture
to
last
actually
night.
watch it myself.
It seemed to make sense for the most part. It'll be alright.
So to me, it's not that many
No,
Show
go ahead.
text.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm actually having to do it through the command line because Android Studio does not want to work.
Okay.
Duty main text. Where is? Oh, my name. No. Where is all that? My file. Recent. Open.
Here we go. Yes, we can ask, it won't break if there's no persistence. Yeah. It will discover that there's no actual persistence right from gate away. And then we can use this to set up the persistence drive.
Yeah, this is it.
And the next time we do it,
There it is.
recognize the persistence drive. You got it?
Yeah, I found it.
Yeah, migrating from API 21 all the way down to 13 might not have been a very good idea. Yeah, you can just shut it down. Since you have no persistence actually connected, that's okay. So you doing the homework okay or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had the same question kind of that you had.
Oh, okay.
My understanding is that, so main's gonna still call the setup, static setup, and then and then when it creates the model object, the adapter object, instead of going back to main, it's gonna go to fragment. Set the fragment labels.
Right, so all those listeners that do things, like, okay, who needs to know that this button is clicked, all that code does not belong to the activity anymore because it is now the fragment that owns the user interface elements.
Basically, main's gonna call setup, setup's gonna establish the fragment instead of main, right?
You have to utilize the fragment too. So the fragment is now responsible to say, okay, who are my adapters? And then you will name each adapter and go like, okay, this button has been clicked, go reset. Or this button has been clicked, go improvement.
I think I understand, I just don't know how to say it.
Okay. Alrighty.
Alright, see you later.
Okay, so create a persistence folder. You just have to give it a name of persistence. The label needs to be persistence. Go and extension 4 is the file system. And this is your main Windows partition, and we shrunk it a little bit to give us that space. And when this class is done, if you want to, you can delete the persistence partition, and then expand with NTFS partition again, so to kick back this 100 megabytes. Okay. Alright. So and what we want to do is to there's one additional step to do, which is to create a small tiny file. This only needs to be done once it's done. It should be good. So we're looking at SEH. kept pressing the up button. I used to really like Lenovo keyboards. This is a Lenovo, right? Yeah, the old keyboard layout is really, really nice, even on a small laptop. Okay, so I think that is all we need. So let's go ahead and put. Let's see. Recognize the persistence track. Did we change the BIOS so it automatically looks for the USB drive first? Oh, okay, sure. Okay, that works. So I'll let you go, but then you go ahead and restart using USB. Let me stop the recorder first. Don't remember whether I stopped the mic, but not necessarily the recorder. So just recording empty stuff.